Hope y'all had a very wonderful Christmas and looking forward to a new year. 2022. Wow, that was an interesting year. And now we're probably facing another interesting year. Had a wonderful time in Texas. Went from 13 degrees with the wind chill below zero to almost the mid 70s when we left. Luggage didn't show up when we got home, but that's not as big a deal, right? When you're on your return, as it is when you're going on vacation, which happened to us in Israel. These are a sign of the times. Let me tell you. It used to be, you didn't even hang on to your tag, for your luggage because you always had it. Now you better hang on to that tag. Right, it's a very interesting time. Those of us who studied things out and chose not to get the jab, boy, is Twitter with Elon Musk and the revelation coming forward of how the algorithms were protected within the company, and he's revealing all this to protect Fauci and to just squelch any other thoughts about this. It's all coming to light, and we're really seeing now that the jab really did nothing to stop someone from getting that. I still have to speak in code. Isn't that crazy? After all the evidence and all the things, it's just amazing. And the whole mask thing, and we were lied to. Now, again, if people choose to get it, they can. For me personally, you can put whatever you want in your body. That's what agency is, and if you choose to do that, that's totally fine. But you know how I feel about this, and how it permeated through the church. And on some other channels that I've appeared on, other YouTubers, people still, like I'll appear on a channel and there'll be a comment in there saying, I thought Brother Palmer was great until he went against the prophet, kind of thing. It's like, good night, folks. You pick that one thing and, I'm done. Well, so be it. But the news is really, it's getting more and more mainstream. Now, the narrative is still that they're recommending that you get the not only the jab, but the subsequent doses. I have to be careful everything I say still, because it will lessen the symptoms. Well, how do you prove that? You can't. So, but it's awesome to see now even mainstream news going, I think we've been had on this. And of course, the flu is going through and covering everything. Now look, I'm going to tell you right now, I am such a believer in cardio miracle, in protecting my immune system. I have been around so much illness and flying and family and just stuff. And it's just life, right? It's life. We don't want to live in a bubble. We don't want to hide. We want to live. And this is, whether it's the subconscious, I think there's science behind all this. I don't understand it all, but I'm telling you, I do the two doses a day religiously, and I swear by it. That doesn't mean I might not get ill. I don't know. All I can tell you is the last several months of when I've taken it religiously, I feel so much better. So that's me. That's me. I'll put a link in the not in the description, but in the comments if you want to try it out. You get a discount. It's good stuff. Very good stuff. It's the nitric oxide. It has the ability to move the things that you need throughout your body, and not just go and sit in your gut and go out, right? It moves you, and you can go on their website, www.cardiomiracle.com, and you can read for yourself. There's some cool, like an infomercial. If I can figure out how to link it, I will. And actually, Sue does a great job of telling her side of it. So it's really, really good. Okay, what I wanted to talk about today, I did a video probably a year or two ago on the relics of the restoration. So you might be able to find it. I'm not going to put the link to it. It probably wasn't that great. But I wanted to readdress that because I think it's a pretty big element in these faith crises that you hear about. And I know from personal experience, returned missionaries, that they just can't quite grasp gold plates, angels, delivering so ancient swords, a ball, a spindle, glass, spectacles of ancient origin, like really ancient origin, and that they're really, and the essence of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. We're very smug, I think, in our faith of distancing ourselves from relics. Having been to Nazareth, having been to the Holy Sepulchre, having been to Bethlehem, and the chapel there, celebrating the birth of Christ, the nativity. The icons in there are amazing, but it's not what we're used to. And many Christian Protestant faiths aren't. Not that we're Protestant, I know that, guys, so don't. But most Protestant faiths go into these very, as one Brazilian sister we had, Catholic, she would say Catholic, very Catholic feeling to it, and we feel uncomfortable because we don't worship icons, we don't look at icons. When I grew up, we had a picture of the Savior. I can still see it. It was kind of a side profile, and he had almost like quartering, but kind of a side and really long flowing hair. And I just love that picture, and we had it in our chapel. But there's a few chapels still that get the okay to have that. But most, we don't have those. We don't have those anything in our chapels. And I get it. Going to have them out in the foyers and in the temple, out and about. But when you're in the place of worship, we don't have those. Now, I think people in the church make the mistake of worshiping, and by ignoring and not teaching and not embracing it and not having it right in the front of how cool is this. One of my favorite shows, and you guys will be shocked about this, was Ancient Aliens. I watched every episode. I haven't seen it for probably a year. So I don't know if there's any new episodes or not. It's just I don't have it on YouTube TV, which is my current provider for television, and I just but the thing I liked about that and the men on it, I know many of you can't handle Joe Rogan, but he's had many of these guys that were on Ancient Aliens as guests, and it's just fascinating. If you can deal with a few F-bombs here and there. I grew up in trucking, and man, guys could just let the language flow. It was almost poetic. and I was around it so much that it doesn't do anything to me. I guess it should. Maybe I need to apologize. I don't know, but it is what it is. It's almost like cigarette smoke. I almost like it because I was around it so much when I was working as a young returned missionary. Everyone smoked. It was back when you could smoke in the offices. In offices, you could smoke anywhere, and. There's something about that, just kind of, I don't know. I know what it does to you, and yeah, I'm probably damaged from secondhand smoke. I don't know. But in any event, what was I talking about? Well, smoking, working. Dang it. I hate it when this happens. I get off on something. So we're talking about icons, the church, swearing. Thank you. Thanks for helping me. So swearing really doesn't do much to me. And I don't know where I was going on that, but oh yeah, I was going to tell one story. Had an elder, really had a rough background, a young elder, and I got a call from as a mission president. I got a call from a bishop. Now think of this, guys. So in our mission, we had close to 500 bishops in our mission boundaries. So I didn't really deal a lot with bishops. And when I did, quite often it was just to complain. They were complaining. We had when we first started, we had 60 stake presidents. So, it was just, and generally it was, to call and complain about elders. And I've mentioned this before, occasionally sisters, but hardly ever. Sorry, young men. But, because our mission was in Utah, we had missionaries come from all over the world to us, and many of them were first generation members of the church, and some of them just had these crazy backgrounds. Well, anyway, this one elder really had a tough background, and this bishop called and just fired up. I mean, he was smoking mad, and this was later on in our mission, so I learned when I was first there, man, I was ready to fight, and duke it out with whoever. But I learned a little bit of patience and understanding, and this good bishop called me. He goes, "I am so mad right now, Elder so-and-so. He told me to F off." I couldn't help but just burst into laughter. I was like, what? And this bishop, this was in West Valley, this bishop had the elders come over and do a little service help for him, because they were always volunteering, and missionaries were always looking for something to do. So they were helping, and the bishop was, I guess, getting a little meticulous about how he wanted certain things in the backyard, and this elder just finally lost it and told him to F off. And It's not funny. I shouldn't be laughing, but just the combination of how indignant this bishop was that this elder would do that. And so I let him vent, and then I finally said, you know, I said, look, I'll apologize for him. I said, I know he's not going to apologize to you. I know this elder. I know his background. I know his history, and we're just glad that he's out and he's trying to, you know, preach the gospel in his way. And I did talk to the elder, and I told him, look, you know, bridle your tongue, right? Control your passion. And I don't know how it all worked out, but for me, I was like, okay, so he said it, you know. But some people are just so offended by language, and I think rightfully so. I don't condone it. It's not something I think everybody should just go out and do. I'm just telling you my life experiences. I was around it so much that it just doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. But and I don't know why I got off on that. But we're talking about relics, and a lot of young missionaries, they'll come home off their missions, and they haven't been taught much. They'll hear a little bit about gold plates, you know, the first vision, obviously. But we like to kind of, you know, let's not talk about that until later because you're not ready for it. I think, in my opinion, get it out right in front. It's the coolest thing ever. It makes our faith and the restored gospel so unique that we have these relics in our history, and we just finished the Old Testament, right? Studying the Old Testament, and there's relic after relic after relic. You know, we have these icons, if you will, that you hear about, and there's special powers that come through it, you know, and inside the Ark of the Covenant, you have these items, you know, that the manna, and you have Aaron's rod that just a stick that budded, and you have, you know, all these, the plate, the tablets, and the power, you know, and you have stones, all kinds of stones, you know, through the Old Testament that have power, and rings, and breastplates, the Urim and Thummim. You have those things, and we go, yeah, Old Testament stuff. Well, we have it right here and now as far as the restored gospel. We might not know where they are, but they're in our scriptures. They're in the Doctrine and Covenants, which to me, I've said this before, is the Book of Mormon is the testament or the witness of the restoration, and the Doctrine and Covenants is a witness or a testament of this dispensation. It's the word for us, and in there it's all talked about. In I think it's section 17, just goes through every item that Joseph saw in the stone box, along with the plates. And I think in fact, I'm going to teach a mission prep class on this, and really pound it to them and tell them to embrace it. These are cool. There's so many things we don't understand, and we don't know how things work. The goofy mainstream explanations of how the Great Pyramid and the Pumapunka blocks, the H blocks, how they're made, the megalithic stone, you know, 100-ton stones that are carved perfectly and put into place, and you know, and we had these logs that we put it on, or we had wet sand that we slid, you know, and had all these slaves, and it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And yet that's what's being taught or just ignored. Sue and I went into to the Great Pyramid, into the King's Chamber a few years ago on the Giza Plateau. So awesome. And you get in there, and there's this beautiful red granite inside the King's Chamber. And these are several ton stones, perfectly polished, placed in there. They say these stones came from 500 miles away, and they're hundreds of feet in the air. You know, how do you do that? Inside. It's all perfectly, it's incredible. The Incas, you know, with those massive walls, the stones, massive stones, you can't put a piece of paper in there. There's no mortar, and they fit perfectly. Oh, how did you do that? The alignments of the pyramids in Egypt, the main ones there, and then the having really similar, almost identical alignment as the one in Teotihuacan outside of Mexico City. You know, how do they do that? Now, here's another thing. It's so fascinating. You guys can Google this, but the in Egypt, in the Mayan, which actually it's not Mayan, it's Olmec. And soon I've seen these firsthand. Seen it. I can't say that I touched it, but saw it. And then I haven't seen the Assyrian ones, which would be in, you know, Babylon or modern day Iraq. But these figures, these hieroglyphs carved in stone. Oh, and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. The figures are holding a bag, a handbag. It has a handle and a bag. And they're all similar all throughout the world. I'm like, this is, who can explain it? To me, it looks like this person has knowledge, understanding, maybe even deity, some form of deity. You know, it's like the Egyptian. It's not the ankh that they hold that shows that they have deity. It's an actual handbag. It looks like a handbag. Look it up. It's fascinating. And we've seen the one in Mexico. Now, the Olmec predate the Mayan and Aztec. So you have the Aztecs, or the more current folks, and then you had the Mayan, and then you had the Olmec that predated. Now, some people, I know this is going to bother some people, but the Olmecs would match up very well with the Jaredite culture, and then the Nephite would line up with the Mayan, the early Mayan. So you have pre-classic, classic, and post-classic that have been identified as a Mayan culture, and a lot of the ruins that you'll see. Soon I've been to a bunch of them in Guatemala, in Honduras, in Belize, and in Mexico. And, you know, it's like, they're like a tell, just like in Israel or any of these, they build on top of each other. That's where the word hotel comes from. That's stacked on top, right? So a tell is a city built on a city, built on a city, and it becomes a tell. Well, you have the same thing in Mesoamerica, where you got to go down to get another civilization, basically. So a lot of critics that would point to the Great Lakes or the Heartland model of where the Book of Mormon took place would say, you know, the ruins you're looking at are more current, which is true. They are. They wouldn't be in the Book of Mormon time period, but as you go down, then they would. The Olmec is one. The Olmecs are the ones you've seen, the ginormous head, the colossal heads, and they're different nationalities. You can see it's just amazing. But in one of those carvings, not the big head, but the same culture, is this, almost looks like he has a space helmet on and he's holding out a handbag. We've seen that. We've seen that. We've seen gold plates in the Mexico City Museum. It's one of the most fabulous. So we've been to the Cairo Museum and that one, and they're just amazing. But they have gold plates with inscription on that they've found, in the Mayan culture. So it's pretty amazing. I know the Stoddard family. Well, I don't know why I just brought that up. I'll get into that in just a second. Not to confuse with Jody Stoddard, but there's a family, they're awesome. They write books, but they've really explored the idea of the Urim and Thummim versus the Seer Stone. And you can look into that. I have no problem with the Seer Stone myself. I don't. I think there's some pretty good historical evidence that Joseph used a seer stone, but also the Urim and Thummim. Now, that was a really bad transition from the Mayan and all this stuff, but it just popped into my head, so I said it. But now that I've made that transition, let's just go there. I guess what I'm saying is we need to embrace these ancient cultures, especially as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The temple ceremony is of ancient origin. Our prophet, President Nielsen, has told us that. We have in our scriptures these icons, and let's go through some of these icons, particularly the Urim and Thummim. Now, we know that Joseph Smith used the Urim and Thummim to help him translate the Book of Mormon. He used it for other things as well. And you guys can do the research on that. It's pretty amazing. This particular Urim and Thummim, I think there's very good evidence that there was more than one. We definitely have record of it in the Old Testament. And it was part of the priestly breastplate, and the Urim and Thummim was attached to stones. Okay. I actually went on, I can't remember if it was Amazon or some other site, and I've purchased 2 stones that are the Urim and Thummim stones. I love stuff like that, and I'll show them when I get them. I think it's kind of cool. I'm not thinking that they have any power or that I'll be able to use them in any way. I embrace icons. I like them. They remind me of heaven and earth being connected. Now, think of Lehi. We'll get back to the Urim and Thummim here in a second, but think of Lehi in the wilderness. He's responsible. He's got a really good son in Nephi that's kind of taking over a little bit. But here's Lehi. He opens up his tent, and there's a brass ball with spindles. Remember those eight balls that you would, you'd ask it a question and shake it, and then a thing would appear. This is kind of how this was, and it operated on faith. And the spindles would point where food was, which direction you should go. Curious workmanship. It's unlike anything, and it just shows up. Nobody has to do anything with it. Nobody has to build it or fix it, and so you have that. The director, the Liahona, which is what our magazine's called now, right? Now, for me, if I was educating young kids or teenagers or whatever, I would say, so why do we call the Liahona? Okay, let's talk. Well, it was the compass thing. Oh, really? Well, let's talk about that. Have you ever, do you really believe that would happen, that God could do that? and really think about it. It just shows up. So if we go to section 17 of the Doctrine and Covenants, I think it's section 17. Yeah. Behold, I say unto you, first verse, that you must rely upon my word, which if ye do with full purpose of heart, you shall have a view of the plates and also of the breastplate, the sword of Laban, the Urim and Thummim, which were given to the brother of Jared. Now you have to go back to Mosiah, maybe even Omni, but for Mosiah for sure. I think it's mentioned twice in Mosiah, where the Urim and Thummim that Joseph used is the Urim and Thummim that the brother of Jared had, that brought from the old world. And if you think of these massive heads that they found in Mexico, colossal head stones, and the different nationalities that they represent, you could think of, if you look on a map and you look at the Tower of Babel or Babylon, which would be modern day Iraq, if you head east and travel across the continent and then sail across the Pacific from in that direction, the opposite direction of what Lehi did, you could see where someone would go through and see many cultures before and races before they got, so by the time they travel through there and then go, it's a possibility, guys. It's just a possibility. But think of the different people that they would see along the way, and then depict them in stone when they got to the promised land. Okay, it's an idea. Okay, so the Urim and Thummim wasn't one that Lehi had, wasn't one that Nephi had, wasn't one that King Benjamin or King Mosiah had. It was, well, he did obtain it, but it was the one that the brother of Jared passed on down to probably, I guess, Ether. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. And that's the Urim and Thummim. So this is ancient. This is not that long after the flood. And then, okay, which was given to the brother of Jared upon the mount when he talked with the Lord face to face, and the miraculous directors which were given to Lehi. So that was there as well. So you have plates, sword of Laban, Urim and Thummim, and the directors, all amazing. That sword of Laban would have been really, really cool to see and to heft it, Anyway, we need to think about every one of those. Those are the relics of the restoration. We ought to think of the relics in the Old Testament. There's not so many relics in the New Testament, and I think that's where we kind of get the separation. I feel like the restored gospel of Jesus Christ bridges that gap of what we hear in the New Testament. That is minus the relics for the most part, but bridging that Old Testament to now, and these relics help us link that time period together and attach us to that. And really, when you think about it, they're all about the covenant. They're all about the covenant that God has made with man. They enhance that. Now we can say, well, we don't need it anymore. We don't need those things anymore. They're not important anymore. Well, if that's the case, then why are they in the Doctrine and Covenants? And why were they buried so that Joseph Smith could see them, feel them, touch them, and testify of them if they're not important? I say baloney. They are important. Absolutely important. And the more we kind of push them underneath, it's like don't watch Ancient Aliens, or don't listen to this other thought about how all this happened. Stick to the mainstream narrative. I think the more we do that, the more cynical our young people will become, because they'll go, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how that would have happened. So I don't believe anything you say. But if we just immediately embrace every single one of these, for lack of a better word, icon, relics, and really talk about them, and talk about them in a kind of an Indiana Jones kind of way, and then in a spiritual way, and tie that in. So when if they go on a mission or they get out in the world, they're not hearing it for the first time and going, what? We believe in that? Witching rods, divining rods, Joseph Smith used them. I've used them. I've used them several times to find water pipelines, to find out. I usually use two hangers, and they're kind of just in an L shape, and I'll hold on to the short ends, and when they cross, I know the line is right there. It works every time. I know some divining rods were wood. I don't understand how those would work. The metal, somehow magnetically, and this and water and metal and stuff, I don't know. Somehow that makes a little bit better sense to me. But these were used, and so were seer stones, or peep stones, or what's the other word that they were called? Let's see. What were they called? I think it's Mosiah 8 is when we first start hearing about these things. This might not be the first part or first time we hear them, and I could be wrong. Yeah, interpreters. And now Ammon said unto him, I'm in chapter 8, verse 13, I can assuredly tell you, O king, of a man that can translate the record, for he has wherewith that he can look and translate all records that are of ancient date. And it is a gift from God, and the things are called interpreters. And no man can look in them except he be commanded. Lest he should look for that he ought not, that he should perish. And whosoever is commanded to look in them, the same is called seer. Now, this is really interesting, because if you look at them, you're called a seer, or look through them. So, and behold, the king of the people who are in the land of Zarahemla is the man that is commanded to do these things, who has this high gift from God. And the king said that a seer is greater than a prophet. And Ammon said that a seer is a revelator and a prophet also. And the gift which is greater can no man have, except he should possess the power of God, which no man can yet. Yet a man may have great power given him from God. Now, listen to this. But a seer can know of things which are past, also of things which are to come, and by them shall all things be revealed. So we kind of, I think of that as a prophet, but it's actually specific to a seer. And by them shall all things be revealed. So a prophet sometimes we would think of as more of as a key holder, or someone with authority, but a seer is one who can see in the past, present, and into the future. Or rather, shall secret things be made manifest, and hidden things shall come to light. This is where secret combinations can be revealed, and hidden things. And things which are not known shall be made known by them, and also things which shall be made known by them, which otherwise could not be known. So nowhere in those verses do I see that you can do it without the Urim and Thummim. It's pretty interesting, right? It's pretty interesting. Verse 19. And now when Ammon had made an end of speaking these words, the king rejoiced exceedingly and gave thanks to God, saying, doubtless a great mystery is contained within these plates. Those were the plates from the Jaredites. And these interpreters were doubtless prepared for the purpose of unfolding all such mysteries to the children of men. Wow. Now, isn't that cool? So we have to think that there's 15 men that we sustain as prophet, seers, and revelators. So seer being the greatest, it's kind of interesting. It's in the middle of those, prophet, seer, revelator, that they would have access to these. It's interesting to think about, to these stones, these interpreters. Now, if we go to Mosiah 28, it refers to those again, and it says this is pretty interesting. And now he translated them by the means of these two stones, this is Mosiah, which were fastened into two rims of a bow, which is really similar to what how Joseph described him. Now these things were prepared from the beginning and were handed down from generation to generation for the purpose of interpreting languages. And they have been kept and preserved by the hand of the Lord, that he should discover to every creature who should possess the land the iniquities and abominations of the people. So this is another purpose of the Urim and Thummim. It's not just to interpret languages, it's to expose or to discover, which is really similar to the other reference we had in Mosiah 8 of having the ability to find hidden things and secret things. But this says to discover to every creature who should possess the land the iniquities and abominations of his people. Now let's go to Alma 37 and see if we can get another witness of that. So we have two witnesses of that. That's one of the purposes of the stones is to find the wickedness. So if we go to Alma 37, and the Lord said, I will prepare unto my servant Gezellim. So I'm in Alma 37:23, a stone which shall shine forth in darkness unto light, that I may discover unto my people who serve me, that I may discover unto them the works of their brethren, yea, their secret works, and their works of darkness, and their wickedness and abominations. This is what a seer, with the ability of the stones, the interpreters, the Urim and Thummim, whatever you want to call them, the spectacles, you can also not just interpret language, but 3 times it says it will, you can discover their secret works of darkness and their wickedness and abominations. Now, my son, these interpreters were prepared that the word of God might be fulfilled, which he spake. I will bring forth out of darkness unto light all their secret works and their abominations, except they repent. I will destroy them from off the face of the earth. So you see abominations, you see the secret works. It's the stones that expose that and reveal it. Now, why aren't we preaching this on a regular basis? I don't know. We also have in that chapter, Alma 37, we have the Baal or director, the Liahona, mentioned, right? So that's really good. Now, if you go to Ether, it's towards the beginning of Ether. it mentions this as well, because this is back when, you know, the brother of Jared is getting him. And you have in the same chapter, I think it's chapter 3, you have the 16 stones that are molten by the brother of Jared and then touched by the finger of Jehovah. And so you have 8 vessels. You have 2 stones, one on each end of the vessel to lighten it. Those are icons. We don't have them. We don't know what happened to them, but I doubt they got off the barges and then just went, we don't need these anymore. They probably kept them. And it's cool. But in that same chapter, we have the mention of the Urim and Thummim. And it says, and behold, when ye shall come unto me, ye shall write them and shall seal them up, that no one can interpret them, for ye shall write them in a language that they cannot be read. And behold, these 2 stones will I give unto thee, and ye shall seal them up also with the things which ye shall write. For behold, the language which ye shall write I have confounded, wherefore I will cause in my own due time that these stones shall magnify to the eyes of men these things which ye shall write. Magnify to the eyes of men. Okay, this is really, really important, because it's the whole purpose of these stones is to magnify to all. It says in the eyes of men, multiple. It's almost like mankind. And for us to not talk about them, or to just kind of like treat it like, well, it's one of those mystery things that, you know, when you're ready, you know, maybe you should explore it, but until then, don't do it. That's just bull honky. I don't buy any of that. So let's embrace them all. Let's study them. Let's think about them. Let's celebrate them. Let's contemplate technology from ancient times that we cannot duplicate. You know, we have our smartphones and our tablets and our computers, and they're all wonderful, but they're not seer stones of ancient origin. And there has to be a combination of one who God wants them to use. So these are all just cool things. And it's interesting that we refer to 15 men as seers. And according to Scripture, they would have access to the interpreters in order to be a seer. So that's the way I read it. There's references in the Old Testament. I won't go into that, but God bless you all. Thank you. You're such good folks, and you have so much knowledge. Many of you have shared some videos, email. I'll try to catch up with. I've been in Texas for a week and focused on grandkids, and you know, grandpas are okay, but grandmas are amazing, and Grandma Palmer, my wife, dang, I don't know how she does it, how she did it, but she has this gift and energy to be with these young kids, and I don't know, but little Jane is doing great. I shared a video. YouTube, it's so interesting. YouTube's really careful about exposing children to, you know, so anytime you have a child on a video, you know, there no comments and no this. So that's why that happened. I wasn't super aware of that, but kind of, because I've never done that before. But I just wanted you to see Jane and Nellie, because I know a lot of you have known the situation with her and dealing with leukemia and all that. But oh, we had a great time, and she's doing so well. So God bless. Happy New Year if I don't get another video out. But embrace the icons. Talk to you soon. Bye.